She never imagined that the love of her life, her powerful millionaire husband, would one day cast her aside like yesterday's news. But that's exactly what happened when Felicia, pregnant and vulnerable, found herself betrayed by Derek Stanton, a man whose ruthless ambition masked an unforgiving heart. In a single moment, her life was shattered, her dreams dissolved into heartbreak. Little did Derek know, Felicia wasn't one to crumble quietly. She was determined to rise from the ashes, armed with the truth and backed by the law. And on Derek's wedding day to another woman, Felicia would make a dramatic entrance no one would ever forget. Felicia Lewis first met Derek Stanton against the glittering backdrop of a Manhattan charity gala, a place where the wealthy and the influential gathered to sip champagne and discuss philanthropic ideals. Felicia had been volunteering for a local children's foundation that evening, hustling from table to table, ensuring every generous donor had the information they needed. With her wide smile and deep dedication to the cause, she stood out from the perfumed crowd of socialites who were more interested in flaunting their designer gowns than focusing on the children's plight. Derek Stanton was instantly taken by her presence. A self-made millionaire, he had maneuvered his way up the social ladder, using a combination of brilliance and relentless determination. Raised by a single mother in a cramped Cleveland apartment, Derek vowed at an early age to conquer the business world and ensure his loved ones would never experience the hardships he once knew. By the time Felicia met him, he was the owner of Stanton Innovations, a company known for forging lucrative tech deals and rubbing elbows with industry titans like Bill Gates and Tim Cook at prestigious conferences. That night, Derek appeared as the epitome of charm. Standing over 6 feet tall, with impeccably styled dark hair, he wore an understated yet expensive suit. His green eyes sparkled whenever he spoke about the philanthropic projects he supported, impressing guests such as Warren Buffett, who lauded Derek's forward-thinking ventures. Felicia, drawn to his passionate stories, felt a quiet admiration for this man who combined outward success with apparent generosity. Their conversation began innocently enough. He asked about her involvement with the Children's Foundation, and she shared stories of the kids who had captured her heart. Felicia felt a jolt of excitement when she noticed Derek leaning in closer to hear every word she said, as if her voice was the only one in the bustling room. Their casual chats led to a private walk by the garden terrace, away from the flash of cameras, capturing the likes of Oprah Winfrey and other high-profile attendees. Beneath the golden glow of decorative lights, Derek confessed that he had been searching for a partner who understood his ambitions, yet held on to compassion. Within days, Derek invited Felicia to exclusive parties, introducing her to top-level executives and celebrities. His black Mercedes would arrive at her modest apartment in Queens, whisking her away into a world of lavish dinners at 5-star restaurants, front-row seats at fashion shows, and private helicopter rides to summer homes in the Hamptons. Felicia felt like Cinderella stepping into a fairy tale, not fully aware that every fairy tale has its hidden complexities. Their whirlwind romance took shape more rapidly than either expected. Felicia's friends, including her longtime confidant Grace Turner, a dedicated nurse at Lenox Hill Hospital, whispered words of caution. They worried about the dizzying pace of Felicia's new life, the sudden shift from volunteer coordinator to the potential fiancé of a millionaire. But Felicia's heart was filled with hope, believing that Derek's sweet gestures and philanthropic passion mirrored the contents of his soul. When Derek proposed 6 months later with a dazzling diamond ring set with an heirloom stone, supposedly traced back to his grandmother, Felicia accepted without hesitation. She believed in the man standing before her, the man who had given huge donations to local shelters, helped sponsor scholarships for underprivileged students, and even visited orphanages in impoverished countries. In her eyes, he was a hero who had simply been misunderstood by those who envied his meteoric rise. But behind Derek's sparkling green eyes lay an iron will, an obsessive desire for control and victory. He had always thrived on competition, from outsmarting peers in his high school debate club to entering near-impossible markets and emerging on top. Felicia, so captivated by his generosity, had never suspected that his philanthropic gestures were carefully calculated to enhance his brand image. Unbeknownst to her, Derek's kindness had its limits, and the man who swept her off her feet had shadows lurking behind his philanthropic facade. They married in an opulent ceremony at a private estate in the south of France. Journalists clamored for details about the high-profile wedding that had attracted tech magnates, film stars, and even political figures. Felicia's family, humble by every standard, felt out of place amidst the glitz. Yet seeing her radiant smile, they believed she had indeed found her happily ever after. Derek spared no expense. A gown crafted by a top designer from Milan, diamond-studded invitations to the 100-odd guests, and the presence of a famous violinist who had once played for the Queen of England. For Felicia, the wedding was a dream realized. She stood, hand in hand with Derek, reciting vows beneath an archway draped with white roses, tears glinting in her eyes as she spoke the words that promised a lifetime of devotion. Their honeymoon took them on a private yacht cruise around the Greek Isles. Their days were a blur of snorkeling in clear waters, sampling gourmet dishes from a personal chef, and strolling through ancient ruins where they laughed and joked about building an empire that would last centuries, just like the Greek legends. On some evenings, Derek's phone would buzz relentlessly with business calls, but Felicia, intoxicated by love, paid no heed. She believed these interruptions were inevitable for a man with such far-reaching ambitions. By the time they returned to their spacious penthouse in Manhattan, Felicia felt a warm sense of belonging. Derek had handed her the keys and said, "Welcome home, Mrs. Stanton." Her new life, complete with a dedicated housekeeping staff, personal shoppers, and an in-house chef, seemed too good to be true. She was determined to stay grounded. She continued her volunteer work and decided to enroll in an online course in nonprofit management, hoping to use her new position as Derek's wife to further her beloved causes. Derek, however, became increasingly absorbed in Stanton innovations. He spent nights locked in his study, poring over acquisitions, negotiating with global investors, and making calls to faraway time zones. Felicia missed the spontaneous romance of earlier days, those sparks of excitement when he'd surprise her with a dinner date or a weekend getaway. She consoled herself by thinking this was the price of being married to a brilliant, ambitious man. And in fleeting moments, Derek would revert to the loving husband who once captured her heart, a weekend in Aspen. Spontaneous diamond earrings for her birthday, or sweet, handwritten notes hidden around the penthouse. Yet there were subtle shifts in his demeanor that Felicia chose to overlook. The way he'd frown when she questioned his late-night absences, or how he'd dismiss her desire to spend holidays with her family in Queens, claiming they belonged in better circles now. She told herself it was merely stress. After all, being a titan of industry was no small feat. Deep within her heart, though, Felicia felt an unsettling prick of worry. She remembered the suspicious glances from Derek's longtime acquaintances, particularly Catherine Pierce, a seasoned investor who had known Derek since his early ventures. Catherine once pulled Felicia aside at a black tie event and politely warned, "Dear, watch his eyes, not his words." But Felicia brushed off the cryptic comment. She couldn't fathom why Catherine would doubt Derek's intentions. Catherine might just have been jealous of their happiness. At least, that was how Felicia comforted herself. For the first year of their marriage, Felicia tried to become the ideal partner to a high-profile millionaire. She attended business galas in elegant designer gowns, standing by Derek's side as he confidently navigated the circles of power brokers. Reporters often captured them under headlines such as "The Power Couple to Watch." Felicia's philanthropic efforts made her a favorite among lifestyle columnists who praised her for combining glamour with genuine social concern. Yet she struggled with the unspoken expectations Derek placed on her. He wanted her to exude poise and charm at all times. If she made an offhand comment about politics or displayed a bit of clumsiness in front of his business associates, Derek would remind her afterward, gently at first, about the importance of appearances. Over time, his comments grew sharper. He criticized the way she walked, the words she chose, her table manners, and her choice of friends. For every "I love you," there came a biting remark, "But you must do better, Felicia." When she tried to express her discomfort, Derek brushed her aside. "I'm teaching you how to thrive in these circles," he'd say. "You'll thank me later." Felicia felt her self-esteem slowly eroding, yet she remained loyal. She rationalized it all as part of adapting to Derek's world. Her volunteer work became her safe haven. In particular, she grew close to a small soup kitchen in the Bronx, where people knew her simply as Felicia, the kind-hearted woman who served hot meals and listened to their stories. She confided in Grace about the mounting stress in her marriage. Grace, always the pragmatic friend, insisted Felicia see a counselor or at the very least open up a bit more to Derek himself about her feelings. Felicia attempted to do so, but each discussion seemed to end in Derek dismissing her concerns or turning the blame around on her. Amid these tensions, an unexpected joy arrived. Felicia discovered she was pregnant. She had initially experienced bouts of nausea and fatigue, which she chalked up to stress. However, when a test confirmed her suspicion, she was overjoyed. She believed this was the miracle that would restore the warmth in their marriage. She imagined Derek's face lighting up at the news, pictured him holding their child, saw them forging a deeper bond as they embarked on this new chapter in life. But Derek's reaction was not what she had hoped. The minute she told him, he froze. A momentary flicker of shock was followed by what felt like thinly veiled irritation. Now, he asked as though a pregnancy might conflict with an important merger he was planning. Felicia tried to hide her disappointment. She reasoned that Derek was simply stunned or anxious about being a father. She decided to give him space to let him process. But deep down, something in her heart broke a little that day, and the crack began to widen. As Felicia navigated the early months of her pregnancy, she noticed Derek growing increasingly distant. He spent more nights working in his office, sometimes not returning home until the early hours of morning. Whenever Felicia tried to coax him into discussing baby preparations, like choosing a room to convert into a nursery, he'd brush her off, stating that they had plenty of time and more pressing matters demanded his attention. It wasn't until Felicia visited Derek's office for a surprise lunch date that she began to suspect there might be someone else. Arriving unannounced with a picnic basket of homemade sandwiches, she hoped to recapture a bit of romance by sharing a quick meal together. But the receptionist's awkward expression suggested Felicia's presence was unexpected in more ways than one. With a forced smile, the receptionist stammered, "Oh, good afternoon, Mrs. Stanton. Mr. Stanton is, he's in a meeting." Felicia insisted on waiting, but an hour passed with no sign of Derek. Finally, she marched to the frosted glass doors of his private conference room, only to find them empty. Confused, she glanced at the desk phone, noticing the line was disconnected. Worried, she left Stanton Innovations with a gnawing pit in her stomach. But what unsettled her even more was the feminine voice she had overheard whispering in Derek's office corridor, a voice that trailed off the moment Felicia appeared. In the weeks that followed, Felicia started piecing together small clues. Derek's phone would buzz with texts late at night, prompting him to slip into another room to reply. He started wearing cologne more often, even on days he claimed to be working alone at the office. His business trips became more frequent, always with a cryptic reason as to why she couldn't accompany him. When Felicia finally confronted him, Derek dismissed her accusations with a patronizing laugh. "You're imagining things," he told her, pivoting the blame to her hormonal fluctuations during pregnancy. Felicia wanted to believe him. She desperately longed for the life they had once shared. But her gut insisted something was amiss. She confided in Grace, who encouraged Felicia to be discreetly vigilant. "Don't drive yourself mad," Grace said, "but if there's another woman, you have a right to know." One afternoon, Felicia was sifting through Derek's closet, searching for a scarf of hers that had gone missing when she noticed a small gift box nestled behind stacks of shirts. With trembling hands, she opened the box. Inside was a delicate gold bracelet, but the tag attached read, "To my dearest forever, yours D." It did not bear Felicia's name. She had never received such a gift from Derek. It could only mean one thing, an affair. Tears pricked at her eyes, but she stifled them. She needed proof beyond a single gift. She felt her baby move within her, a gentle flutter that reminded her of her responsibility to protect not just herself, but her unborn child. Clutching the bracelet box, Felicia decided she would gather evidence. It was too painful to confront him with mere guesswork. If she was going to demand answers, she wanted to ensure Derek couldn't slip away behind lies and excuses. Over the next few weeks, Felicia discreetly tracked Derek's whereabouts. She endured the guilt of calling in small favors from friends with any connections to private investigators, but she felt she had little choice. Eventually, one of these acquaintances recommended a discreet operative, a retired police officer named Jim O'Malley, who had a reputation for honesty and empathy. When she explained her suspicions, Jim nodded solemnly. "I'll find the truth, Mrs. Stanton." Felicia's heartbreak deepened when Jim returned with photographic evidence. There on her dining table were clear images of Derek embracing a striking woman with auburn hair outside an upscale lounge in Midtown Manhattan. In one shot, they were locking lips under the soft glow of streetlights. In another, they entered a hotel lobby, arm in arm. Felicia swallowed hard, her eyes brimming with tears as the reality of Derek's betrayal confronted her like a cold slap. The woman's name, as Jim discovered, was Vanessa Pierce, a rising star in the fashion industry with contacts in the same social circles Derek frequently navigated. When Felicia managed to confront Derek with the photos, her voice trembling, she was met with a surprising wrath. Instead of apologizing or attempting to reconcile, Derek became outraged that she had investigated him. He accused her of violating his privacy, claiming that her suspicions reflected a lack of trust, unworthy of a proper wife. Felicia's tears turned to a righteous anger. She demanded to know whether he loved Vanessa. Derek's face contorted, and he spat out, "I will not be interrogated in my own house. You brought this upon yourself." That very night, Derek packed a small bag and stormed out. 3 days of silence followed. Felicia felt a whirlwind of conflicting emotions, grief, fury, confusion, and fear for her child's future. She tried to call Derek, leaving messages and apologies, but received no reply. On the 4th day, he returned calm and collected with a set of divorce papers in hand. he informed her that he had decided to move on. The betrayal struck Felicia like lightning. She had expected heartbreak, but not the final blow of a divorce while she was pregnant with his child. Derek demanded she vacate the penthouse within a week. Felicia's protests that she was pregnant with his baby fell on deaf ears. "My lawyer will be in touch," he told her coldly before disappearing into his study to conduct a teleconference with European investors. In that moment, Felicia realized she had married a man who viewed relationships much like business deals subject to termination if no longer deemed profitable. Holding the divorce papers in her trembling hands, Felicia knew she had to protect herself and her unborn child. She sought the help of a high-powered attorney recommended by Grace's hospital co-worker who had once handled a high-stakes custody case. But the attorney's eyes flickered with pity as he explained that Derek had already prepared a formidable legal team. "We need hard evidence of wrongdoing and leverage," he said, "or Stanton's lawyers might leave you with next to nothing." The final blow came on a crisp autumn morning. Felicia, now visibly pregnant, was in the penthouse's living room, sorting through her belongings. She had decided not to wait for the eviction. She would leave before Derek's intimidation could worsen. Yet Derek arrived with two of his lawyers, demanding her immediate departure. Shouting ensued Derek, accusing her of being a gold digger. Felicia in tears, as she pleaded for more time if only for the sake of their unborn child. Neighbors likely heard the conflict, but few would dare interfere with someone as powerful as Derek Stanton. The building's management, loyal to Derek's wealth, politely asked Felicia to comply. With no choice but to protect her safety, she called Grace, who helped her pack her essentials. As she rode the elevator down, with a small suitcase in hand, Felicia felt a rush of despair. She'd been cast out of the life she once thought was her fairy tale. Now she was alone and pregnant, with uncertain finances and minimal support. Felicia found refuge in a modest apartment complex in Queens, close to her family. Despite the heartbreak, she felt a flicker of hope each time she placed a hand on her growing belly. She vowed to never let her child be used as a pawn. She would fight for her rights, for their future. But she also carried a heavy burden of sorrow. She had truly loved Derek, believing in his outward warmth and philanthropic facade. To have that illusion shattered so cruelly was almost unbearable. Her days at the new apartment were filled with doctor's appointments at the local clinic and visits to her attorney. Money was tight. The extravagant gifts Derek had given her could only fetch so much if sold, and many of them were still in the penthouse. Felicia scrambled to gather her resources. Her family pitched in what they could, and Grace often brought groceries to ease the financial strain. Every night, as she tried to sleep on the squeaky bed of her cramped studio, Felicia's mind drifted to the early days with Derek the diamond ring shining under French sunlight, the gentle rocking of the yacht off the coast of Santorini, and that sense of safety she once believed she had. She wondered if she had ever truly known the man she married. And each night she resolved anew to protect her child from the heartbreak she had endured. If Derek thought she would vanish quietly, he was sorely mistaken. During one of Felicia's routine checkups, she encountered an old friend from her charity circuit, Isabella Goodwin, an event coordinator who once helped organize a fundraiser alongside Oprah Winfrey's team. Isabella listened in horror as Felicia recounted the recent turmoil. Moved by her plight, Isabella decided to help. She introduced Felicia to a private women's advocacy group that specialized in providing legal and emotional support for mothers facing financial and domestic crises. Through this group, Felicia connected with a compassionate attorney named Teresa Clarkson. Teresa had a reputation for fighting tooth and nail against wealthy individuals who tried to bully their spouses into unfair settlements. Teresa reviewed Felicia's situation and said, "We can't let Stanton's money override justice. Let's see what we can do." Bolstered by Teresa's confidence, Felicia felt a renewed sense of determination. She shared every detail: Derek's extramarital affair, the abrupt eviction, and the divorce he sought, while leaving her with almost nothing. Teresa introduced Felicia to another valuable ally, Detective Monique Washington of the NYPD, who often assisted women seeking orders of protection or verifying hidden financial activities. Monique recognized Derek's name instantly. Stanton Innovations was a well-known behemoth in the city, with plenty of rumors swirling about the lengths Derek would go for profit. There have been whispers about questionable practices in his firm, though nothing concrete. Monique said, "If Stanton has cut corners, we'll find it." Meanwhile, Felicia discovered an envelope hidden in one of her old purses, an innocuous item she had grabbed from the penthouse in a rush. The envelope contained details about a suspicious real estate deal in Hong Kong, referencing bribes and off-the-record payments. Confused, Felicia tried to recall how it had come into her possession. She vaguely remembered one of Derek's late nights when he'd accidentally dropped a file. Felicia picked it up, but never got the chance to return it. Now, the full significance of these documents began to dawn on her. The details, if legitimate, could not only damage Derek's reputation, but potentially expose him to legal troubles. When Felicia handed the envelope to Teresa, the attorney's eyes glinted with caution and possibility. "This might be the leverage we need," she said. Felicia felt a pang of guilt. She hadn't intended to bring Derek down in this manner. Yet she also recalled how he had cast her out so callously, pregnant and alone. She understood that Derek had no mercy for her, and if she wanted to secure her child's future, she had to fight with whatever evidence she possessed. As Felicia's pregnancy approached the third trimester, she endured waves of exhaustion and the emotional turmoil of her crumbling marriage. She hardly recognized herself when she looked in the mirror, with dark circles under her eyes and a mixture of grief and resilience written across her face. But her unwavering focus was on the child she carried, and she was determined to ensure their safety and future. One day, Teresa called with unexpected news: Derek's marrying Vanessa Pierce next month. Felicia froze her hand, immediately moving to cradle her belly. She had been told Derek wanted a quick divorce, but an entirely new marriage before their child was even born. It was as if he wanted to erase their past and start anew without any inconvenient baggage. And to make matters worse, Teresa suspected the wedding was a strategic move to signal Derek's new image, one of a fashion-forward power couple. He's probably trying to overshadow negative press that might come from the divorce, Teresa said. But we can't let him rewrite the narrative so easily. The more Felicia dug into Derek's life, the more she realized how methodical he was. She learned from Isabella that numerous business partners had discreetly cut ties with Derek, concerned about the rumors swirling around Stanton Innovations. There was talk of hush money paid to keep certain deals under wraps, and of shell companies hidden in offshore accounts. The philanthropic, polished exterior that Derek projected had always been a carefully woven tapestry concealing a ruthless empire of questionable deals. Despite the horrifying revelations, Felicia's mind often wandered back to the sweet moments from their courtship, a bouquet of wild flowers he once gave her because they reminded him of her natural grace, or the all-night conversation they had about changing the world. She wondered if any of that was real, or if she had been just another pawn in Derek's quest for power and prestige. Every time such doubts crept in, she felt her baby move, reminding her that she had a responsibility beyond her heartbreak. Meanwhile, Teresa prepared for a legal battle. She filed for an injunction to freeze certain marital assets, citing the unborn child's rightful claim to Derek's financial support. Felicia also began the process of filing a formal complaint against Derek, with the police focusing on the illegal details in that Hong Kong real estate file. Her heart pounded as she signed her name on various documents, aware that she was setting in motion events that could either secure her future or unleash Derek's wrath. Yet she pressed on, propelled by the knowledge that this was the only way to stand up for herself and her baby. A week before Derek's extravagant wedding to Vanessa, Felicia received a subpoena ordering her to appear in court. Derek's lawyers had filed a motion to finalize the divorce, claiming Felicia was unstable and unfit to share in Derek's estate. The statement was as cruel as it was untrue. It insinuated she was financially irresponsible, emotionally erratic, and seeking to exploit Derek's wealth. Felicia's hands shook with rage as she read the lines designed to paint her as a parasitic gold digger. She realized Derek intended to discredit her completely, leaving her with nothing. Furious and heartbroken, Felicia reached out to Teresa immediately. Teresa told her, "We'll fight this, but be prepared for a mudslinging contest. Derek's legal team is ruthless." And so Felicia braced herself for a hearing that would see every intimate detail of her marriage publicly dissected. She dreaded it, but knew the alternative silence would condemn her to a life of helplessness. The media caught wind of the story as well. A tabloid headline read, "Stanton's ex alleges abuse of power. Scandalous divorce." Ahead, paparazzi began lurking around Felicia's modest apartment building, hoping for a glimpse or a statement. Felicia, already stressed by the pregnancy, began to feel overwhelmed by the sudden spotlight. Grace took off a few shifts to stay by her side, driving her to doctor appointments through back roads to avoid the press. Together, they found small moments of comfort in homemade meals and silent prayers for strength. On a late afternoon, Detective Monique Washington paid Felicia a visit. She brought news that the investigation into Derek's Hong Kong dealings was progressing. "We've discovered some interesting transactions through Stanton Innovations," Monique said. "There might be more to tie him to illegal activity, including falsification of documents." Felicia felt a swirl of conflict. On one hand, she was relieved that the truth might finally come out. On the other, she worried about what Derek might do if cornered. A powerful man with crumbling defenses could be dangerous. Yet in the midst of these revelations, Felicia found an unlikely champion in Catherine Pierce, the same woman who had once warned Felicia to watch his eyes. Catherine, upon hearing Felicia's predicament, came forward with insider knowledge of Derek's cutthroat business methods. She provided a damning trail of evidence that Derek had coerced smaller competitors into selling their companies under duress. With Catherine's testimony, Teresa was confident they could build a case that would demonstrate Derek's pattern of unethical, possibly illegal behavior, further solidifying Felicia's claims. Finally, the day of Derek and Vanessa's wedding arrived, a grand affair rumored to be held at an exclusive waterfront estate outside the city. Paparazzi flocked to the gates, capturing glimpses of celebrities and fashion icons stepping out of black SUVs. Lavish floral arrangements lined the driveway, and classical music resonated through the manicured gardens. The bride, Vanessa, was reported to be wearing a custom gown from a renowned designer, determined to ensure the wedding was the talk of high society. Little did Derek know that Felicia, accompanied by Detective Monique Washington and a small contingent of police officers, was about to make an entrance that would overshadow any superficial splendor. After weeks of preparation and legal maneuvering, the authorities had finally secured an arrest warrant for Derek Stanton, tied to charges of fraud and illegal business practices. Teresa had also verified that Derek's divorce from Felicia was not only incomplete, but riddled with legal improprieties, making this new marriage highly questionable, bordering on bigamy, if the divorce had not been properly finalized. As guests sipped champagne and admired the opulent decor, Felicia, dressed in a simple maternity gown, stepped out of an unmarked car. The hush that fell over the crowd was immediate. No one had expected the pregnant ex-wife to arrive at this celebration of new love. But Felicia walked forward with calm determination, her head held high, carrying a thick folder of documents in her arms. Monique flanked her on one side, a pair of officers on the other. The moment was surreal. Derek, wearing an impeccably tailored tuxedo, was caught off guard near the grand floral archway where he was about to exchange vows with Vanessa. A hush spread among onlookers as Felicia locked eyes with Derek. She could almost see the wheels spinning behind his gaze, shock, rage, then a flicker of fear. "You can't be here," he spat, glancing at the uniformed officers. The music faltered, and the murmuring crowd formed a wide circle around them. Vanessa's expression was one of horror, confusion, and seething jealousy. Felicia, her voice trembling but resolute, announced that Derek Stanton was still legally married. She revealed documents proving that his divorce filing was incomplete and fraudulent. She also handed Detective Monique Washington the crucial file detailing Derek's illegal Hong Kong business dealings, the bribes, and the shell companies. Monique, stepping forward, declared she was exercising the newly authorized warrant for Derek's arrest. What followed was pandemonium. Reporters scrambled to capture the shocking moment. Wedding guests gasped and hissed. Vanessa shrieked, her grand veil swirling about her as she demanded to know what was happening. And Derek, cornered, tried to mount a defense, accusing Felicia of lying, forging documents, and orchestrating a malicious scheme. However, the presence of uniformed officers and the official warrant in Monique's hands left little room for doubt. When the officers handcuffed Derek, a hush fell once again over the crowd. Stripped of his cultivated image, Derek's face contorted in rage. He made one last attempt to lunge at Felicia, shouting accusations that she was a manipulator and a thief, but the officers restrained him. Felicia stood rooted in place, tears trickling down her cheeks, but her expression remained one of unwavering resolve. In that moment, she reclaimed her dignity. The immediate aftermath was a chaotic blend of flashing cameras, hushed whispers, and stunned guests. Vanessa, her fantasy wedding ruined, sank to her knees in her elaborate gown, sobbing and cursing Felicia. Yet Felicia felt only a hollow sadness for this woman who had tried to steal a life that was never rightfully hers. Slowly, the wedding attendees trickled out, some offering Felicia words of sympathy or curious stares. The paparazzi, seeing the biggest story of the season, bombarded Felicia with questions, but Detective Monique and the officers formed a protective barrier, escorting Felicia back to her car. In the ensuing weeks, Derek's arrest became headline news. Major outlets reported that Stanton Innovations faced an internal audit, spooking investors and causing the company's stock to plummet. As more details about Derek's unethical business practices surfaced, public sentiment quickly turned against him. It didn't help that the tabloids relished the story of the pregnant ex-wife who had shown up at his wedding with the police in tow. Derek's name became synonymous with scandal and deceit. Meanwhile, Felicia returned to her quiet apartment in Queens, relieved yet emotionally drained. The child inside her continued to grow, a constant reminder of the precious life at the center of her struggles. Despite the turmoil, she felt a sense of triumph for standing up to the man who had tried to erase her. Every so often, She'd catch a news segment about Derek's upcoming court dates or about Vanessa's meltdown in front of paparazzi. Each time she felt a wave of bittersweet relief that she was no longer caught in Derek's web of deceit. Her attorney, Teresa, worked tirelessly to ensure Felicia received a fair settlement. The courts recognized Derek's wrongdoing, both personal and financial, and granted Felicia the right to substantial support for herself and the baby. Felicia found solace in the knowledge that she could finally provide a stable future for her child, independent of Derek's manipulative grip. Though the legal process was protracted, culminating in Derek's conviction for various financial crimes, Felicia maintained her composure. She even considered writing a book someday, detailing her journey from starry-eyed bride to the mother who bravely confronted a powerful man. It was Catherine Pierce who nudged her in this direction, noting that Felicia's story could serve as a cautionary tale for others lured by wealth and glamour without seeing the darker undercurrents that might lurk beneath. Months rolled by, and Felicia gave birth to a healthy baby girl she named Aurora, a symbol of new beginnings and hope. Surrounded by loved ones, especially Grace, who tearfully held Aurora like a precious gem, Felicia felt joy she hadn't experienced in years. Her heartbreak over Derek still lingered, but it was softened by the baby's sweet coos and the warmth of family. With the settlement funds and the newfound confidence that came from her victory, Felicia embarked on a mission to establish her own nonprofit, one dedicated to supporting expectant mothers who faced domestic turmoil or financial distress. She named the foundation New Dawn, reflecting the sense of rebirth she felt each time she looked at her daughter. Isabella Goodwin helped organize the launch event, and even Catherine Pierce attended, offering a generous donation. It became a shining moment in Felicia's life, blending her passion for charity with the lessons she'd learned the hard way. Derek, on the other hand, appealed his conviction multiple times. Yet his once invincible empire was now tarnished beyond repair. Stanton Innovations, under new management, distanced itself from its disgraced founder. Vanessa Pierce, no longer engaged to Derek, quickly pivoted back into the fashion world, giving tearful interviews about her own victimhood. Felicia preferred not to comment on Vanessa's claims, feeling that the woman had already received far more attention than she deserved. As Aurora grew, Felicia found a gentle rhythm in her life, mornings spent with her baby, afternoons dedicated to New Dawn, and evenings for quiet reflection. She attended therapy sessions to heal from the trauma of her marriage. Although she could never fully erase the memories of Derek's betrayal, each day she grew stronger. The swirl of gossip eventually subsided, replaced by Felicia's tireless efforts to help women in need. There were still moments when she felt the sting of nostalgia, recalling how Derek once whisked her away on a yacht trip, or how he looked at her when they first met. But she reminded herself of the heartbreak, the eviction, and the cruelty that overshadowed the fleeting moments of romance. She was no longer that naive girl, dazzled by wealth and power. One sunny spring afternoon, Felicia was at the community center she'd recently funded through New Dawn, overseeing a class for pregnant women on financial literacy. She listened as the women shared their stories, lost jobs, abusive partners, medical bills that piled up. She saw reflections of her own journey in their eyes, the same fear and uncertainty she had once felt. With a supportive smile, she guided them through budgeting tips, introduced them to local resources, and reminded them that they weren't alone. Standing at the back of the room, Grace watched Felicia with teary-eyed pride. After the session, she gently placed a hand on Felicia's shoulder. "You're really making a difference, you know." Felicia smiled, gazing at Aurora, who lay in a stroller nearby, babbling contentedly. "I'd never have made it here without you." That evening, as Felicia pushed Aurora's stroller through a quiet neighborhood park, she paused on a small bridge spanning a gentle stream. The memory of Derek still lived in the recesses of her mind, but it no longer had the power to haunt her every step. She had turned the page, forging a new chapter, defined by independence, compassion, and a fierce love for her daughter. Life was no longer about lavish galas and champagne toasts. Instead, it was about small victories, a healthy baby giggling for the first time, a struggling mother in her foundation, finding the courage to leave an abusive situation, a volunteer's heartfelt thanks for the opportunity to help others. Felicia felt an expansive sense of gratitude bloom within her. The illusions of wealth had dissolved, replaced by a tangible sense of purpose. Though Derek Stanton's name still floated through legal bulletins and whispered conversations in Manhattan's elite circles, Felicia had long stopped flinching when she heard it. His power, once suffocating and all-consuming, had become a ghost of a former life, a shadow fading into irrelevance. Still, the healing process wasn't linear. There were nights when Felicia jolted awake from dreams, nightmares, where Derek appeared at her door demanding custody of Aurora or luring her back into his world with false promises. But each time, she'd sit up, place a steady hand on her sleeping daughter's back, and remind herself it was over. That chapter had closed, permanently. Derek had attempted to reach out through intermediaries, a carefully worded letter here, a legal inquiry there. His messages always carried the same thinly veiled agenda: control. Whether it was about visitation rights he had no legal basis to claim, or veiled offers of financial support in exchange for silence, Felicia never responded directly. Teresa Clarkson, ever the guardian of Felicia's peace, intercepted each attempt and responded with the full weight of the law behind her. "He had his chance to be involved," Teresa once told her. "Now, he'll play by your rules or not at all." Felicia appreciated how Teresa handled things with precision and care. Each day, the bond between the two women deepened, not just as attorney and client, but as trusted friends. It was through Teresa's encouragement that Felicia resumed regular therapy, where she learned to work through the lasting emotional scars of betrayal, abandonment, and psychological manipulation. Some wounds, she realized, didn't always scream. They whispered, in small hesitations, in the way she sometimes second-guessed herself before making parenting decisions, in the way she scanned crowds, instinctively looking for a familiar, threatening silhouette that never appeared. But slowly, Felicia began replacing fear with gratitude. She built new rituals: morning walks in the neighborhood, with Aurora Sunday potlucks with Grace and her family, and weekly community meetings at a local church that opened its doors to mothers in need. In these simple joys, she found strength. In these small acts, she discovered her identity outside of what she had endured. Grace remained her constant, a lighthouse through every storm. Whenever Felicia faltered, Grace would show up at her door with homemade soup, a playlist of uplifting songs, and a listening ear. "You don't have to carry this alone," Grace would say, tucking Aurora into bed or folding laundry without being asked. You never did. By now, Aurora had grown into a curious toddler with sparkling eyes and an uncanny sense of emotional awareness. She could sense her mother's moods before a word was spoken, and often wrapped her tiny arms around Felicia's leg with perfect timing. It was in those little embraces that Felicia found her deepest healing. She had survived not just for herself, but for the life she'd brought into the world, a life that deserved safety, stability, and joy. One sunny afternoon, Felicia visited the park near her apartment, watching Aurora giggle as she chased pigeons beneath the trees. Felicia sat on a bench, sipping a coffee and breathing in the fresh air. She spotted a young couple nearby, clearly in the early stages of love, whispering and laughing, wrapped in the bubble of romantic illusion. She didn't envy them. Instead, she silently wished them honesty, respect, and something she once lacked, a foundation of truth. Her phone buzzed with a message from Catherine Pierce, the same woman who had once warned her to watch his eyes. Catherine had become something of a mentor since Derek's downfall. She'd taken an active interest in New Dawn, offering strategic advice and even introducing Felicia to ethical investors who supported women-led non-profits. The message read, "Board meeting next Friday. Can you speak about your future plans for New Dawn expansion? You're the heart of this movement, Felicia." Felicia smiled. A year ago, she would have hesitated. Today, she felt ready to speak, ready to lead, ready to leave every lingering trace of fear behind her. That night, after tucking Aurora in and dimming the lights, Felicia stood at the window of their apartment. Below, the city buzzed, unbothered by the battles she had fought. But inside, her world was calm. The monsters no longer lived in her closet. They had been locked out for good. She whispered into the stillness, "We made it, baby girl." Her voice was soft, resolute, "And we're never going back." 2 years had passed since Felicia walked into Derek's wedding with the police by her side. That moment had seemed like the end of an exhausting nightmare. But in truth, it was only the beginning of healing, of rebuilding, of rediscovering who she was outside the shadows of betrayal and scandal. Now she stood tall before a modest crowd in a sunlit community auditorium hosting New Dawn's annual fundraiser. The room buzzed not with prestige or celebrity flashbulbs, but with authentic warmth. Colorful banners made by local schoolchildren hung on the walls. Round tables overflowed with home-baked treats, and soft music played from a student jazz trio. Several women single mothers, survivors of abuse, and young expectant mums took turns sharing how New Dawn had changed their lives. Felicia sat near the stage, her heart swelling with emotion as each story echoed pieces of her own. When it was her turn to speak, she stepped up to the modest podium in a knee-length navy blue dress. No designer label, no jewels, just quiet grace. Her hair curled gently at the ends, framed her face, older, wiser, but radiant. The audience hushed. "My name is Felicia Lewis." She began, her voice steady yet full of emotion. "And not long ago, I thought my life had ended." She paused, letting the silence embrace her truth. Then she told her story, not the one tabloids had twisted for gossip, but the real one. The fear of being cast out while pregnant. The nights spent wondering how she'd survive. The resolve she found in her unborn daughter's heartbeat. And the decision to turn her pain into purpose. "I realized I wasn't alone," she said. "So many women carry invisible battles. What if we created a space where they could feel seen, heard, and supported?" Applause followed, not polite, but thunderous and emotional. Several audience members wiped away tears. Even the mayor's wife, attending quietly in the back, stood to clap. After her speech, people lined up to speak with her, thanking her for her bravery, her honesty, her work. Some admitted they had followed her story in the headlines and expected scandal, but found inspiration instead. Felicia greeted them all warmly, her humility evident. Later that evening, she returned home to the modest apartment she now shared with Aurora. The little girl, almost 3, was painting clumsily on the floor with washable markers, Her curls bounced with every excited squeal. Felicia crouched beside her, ruffling her daughter's hair. "You're getting better at staying inside the lines," she laughed. As bedtime came, Felicia carried Aurora to her small bed, tucking the covers beneath her tiny chin. The toddler looked up with drowsy eyes and murmured, "You make the monsters go away, Mommy." Felicia's chest tightened with emotion. "Always," she whispered, brushing a kiss to her daughter's forehead. "Always." After turning off the light, Felicia stood at the window, staring out at the quiet neighborhood park. She remembered the version of herself that once stood there, shattered, uncertain, afraid. But now she saw someone new reflected in the glass. A mother, a leader, a survivor, a woman who had been broken and rebuilt herself from the pieces. Though Derek's name occasionally popped up in news briefs, usually involving appeals or lawsuits, he no longer haunted her nights. His power over her had been severed not by police or courts, but by the unwavering love she gave herself and her daughter, and by the village that helped her rise: Grace Teresa, Monique Catherine, and every stranger who had extended a hand. Felicia returned to Aurora's bedside and sat quietly, letting the silence hold them both. She knew life would continue to present challenges, but she no longer feared them. She had walked through fire and come out stronger. Her daughter would grow up knowing that resilience was real and that justice, however slow, could be earned. Outside, the wind rustled the trees gently. Inside, peace settled into every corner. Felicia smiled to herself, whispering into the dim room, "This isn't the end. This is just our new beginning." Thank you for immersing yourself in Felicia's gripping journey from devoted wife to unstoppable force, standing up for herself and her child in the face of heart-wrenching betrayal. Her story reminds us that even the most tumultuous storms can give rise to new beginnings if we hold on to hope, dignity, and compassion. If this dramatic tale inspired you, or if you believe others could benefit from hearing Felicia's transformation, help us keep the momentum going. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more captivating stories that spotlight resilience and redemption. By spreading the word, you're helping us reach those who might need the extra spark of courage to face their own challenges. Your support makes all the difference. Together, we can continue to shine a light on tales of triumph and remind everyone that victory is possible even after the darkest moments.